Hey y'all, this is Travis with Hoss Tools, and this is a little segment we do called Garden Goodies. It's just a compilation of short videos that we shoot on our phone throughout the week as we're walking through the gardens, harvesting things, weeding, doing whatever we have to do to maintain a vegetable garden so we can grow our own food. I really hope you enjoy it, and if you have any questions, always put those in the comments below and we'll try to answer them for you. Y'all, these South Anna butternut squash here are just going everywhere. I had been mowing right along the edge of this plot here to kind of keep them contained, but it's been so wet here the last few days I haven't been able to cut my grass. And you can see what's happening here. Let me give you a little perspective. You see the edge of those marigolds right there? That's the edge of that plot there. So they're already stretching out some places 10 foot or so outside of that plot, and just leaves on top of leaves on top of leaves. Never seen such a thing from butternut squash before. That Seminole pumpkin that is kind of bred into there just makes these things go crazy. Haven't had any disease problems, haven't really sprayed these guys lately. Got some nice flowers coming up on them right here. There's a big one right there. There's a bee in there working that flower this morning. Let's see if we can find some little fruits here. Look in there. I don't know if y'all can see, there's a ton of flowers where you can just hear the bees are buzzing in there, working all them flowers on them butternuts. Let's go over here. I think we got a fruit or two over here. Here we go. There's one right there, two, another right there. So there's 3 fruits there just in about a little 2 to 3 square foot place in here. So if that production is constant among this whole plot here, we ought to have just tons and tons of these South Anna butternuts. I'm really, really impressed with this variety here. If you do grow it, I would say give it plenty of room, give it a whole plot or so. Don't try to grow it beside anything else, because as you can see here, these vines are just prolific. This stuff right here does really well in just about any climate, but it thrives in these hot and humid conditions because that Seminole pumpkin that's inside of it. And those vines are about 4 foot tall in the middle there, and just don't look like they have any signs of stopping. But I'm gonna try to get out here this afternoon with the lawnmower and just kind of keep this contained a little bit on the edge here. Look at here, folks. Our peppers are starting to put on and give us some pretty nice little harvest here. Now, I didn't grow a huge assortment like I normally do because we had some issues with growing out our pepper transplants in the greenhouse. We didn't take care of them like we should. So really all I got is bananas, green bells. I got some purple bells, but they hadn't started making yet. And peppers, unlike things like squash, cucumbers, where we got to pick them almost every day, we just pick our peppers once a week, usually on a Sunday or so. We just pick them all once a week and kind of pick everything in the size range, you know, from this guy right here, which is pretty decent size, down to these smaller ones here. On the bells, same thing here. We got some real nice big ones there. That's like you find in the grocery store there. But we'll also go ahead and grab some of these little guys too, because they're handy. Cutting up, throwing in a quick meal. Now in the past I have struggled to grow real big bell peppers. Now I've been able to grow ones like that for years, but to get these real big ones, I haven't always been able to execute there. But I have figured out the secret. You got to feed them babies. You got to feed them plants and they really like that micro boost in there. And if you feed them and fertilize them good, that seems to help get you them big old nice pretty bell peppers that are good for stuffing and all that good stuff. Speaking of stuffing, that's what I like to do with these big old banana peppers here. Like these guys right here. Cut them down the side, put some cream cheese in them, wrap them with some bacon, throw them on the grill. That's some fine stuff right there. We also might try our hand at pickling or fermenting a few of these here. Never fermented peppers, but have heard that it does pretty good. So we got plenty of them, and you know, we'll put a few in our weekly vegetable bags, but we're gonna eat a good many of them and try to figure out some neat ways to process or preserve them. Y'all, I came out to the garden this afternoon and we had had a red snapper catastrophe. And I should have took a picture of it, but I was just so kind of distraught and didn't know what to do and worried and everything else. I didn't get to take a picture of it before I was scrambling to find ways to fix this. But as you can see here, just imagine all this right here leaned over on the ground, all except about the last two plants on that row there. It just got too daggum heavy. These things are just loaded down with fruits, big ones at that, and the everything got too heavy. We got that tropical storm came through here, old Cristobal, and just laid some slow soaking rain down on the ground and just got the ground soft, and they loaded up with those things right there bigger than your fist, and they just fell over. Now thankfully none of the plants broke, but because they were all kind of tied up with that weave there, so it just leaned on over. Now I was out of T-post, so I didn't really know what to do. I got some T-posts that I just pulled some cucumbers up on, so I'm going to be able to use those. But in the meantime, I did find these tomato cages. I can't stretch them out and put them over here, but I was able to kind of just use them folded up to lean up against this row here just to keep everything in. I can't get the stakes back into their original spot. We just got a mess right here. That's what happens when you just grow too big a tomato plant and just too big of tomatoes. I'll know next year I need to use some T-posts with these guys, or else just hope for no tropical storms that are going to soak the ground like that. So I think I'm gonna just come in here and put some T-posts, maybe run some string around that. We're just gonna have to come up with something makeshift to just hold this in place so we can harvest some of these tomatoes and eat them. You know, loaded down like that. Hate not to get some good tomato harvest off of them. And we got plenty of tomatoes out here. I'm really looking forward to this red snapper. So we're gonna try to do the best we can to salvage what we can here, but that sure did break my heart coming out here and seeing that this afternoon. So these things here are called half runner beans, but I don't know about the half. This is the most running beans I have ever seen in my life. So these half runner beans are kind of been around for a while. A lot of the old timers used to grow them, and folks was telling us about them, so we decided to carry them on the site and add them. And man, they produce a ton of foliage. We haven't got any blooms on them yet that I can tell. Maybe there's a few there trying to start out. It's hard to tell if that's a bloom or just some new growth. But these things are just everywhere, and when they do start producing beans, it's like kudzu in here. It's crazy. Well, I remember when we planted these on the video, someone said, oh, you probably give them, I was wondering what the row spacing should be between them. Somebody was like, well, you probably give them a little too much space between those two rows. And now I'm like, did I give them enough space? Looks like those two are going to try to merge together at some point there. We might have to just run a cultivator or something through there just to keep those rows separated. And now we did plant these pretty thick, I will say. I planted with my Hoss garden seeder, and I ran over the row twice just to make sure I got a good stand, and might have planted them too thick. They're just everywhere in here, just covering this whole trellis. And if the production is anything like what the foliage is, we ought to have a ton of beans. I think I saw a flower. Yeah, here we go. Look at there. So they are starting to flower some here. There's some more right there. So we should start to have some bean production here before too long. But I really like these half runner beans so far. We give them a little bit of fertilizer early on, but and once they take off, you just stand back and watch. And that Hortonova trail seems to be holding them pretty good. For some reason, this second row here hadn't quite jumped on the trellis as hard as this first row here. But great way to grow food in the garden in a small space vertically like this. If you didn't have these on a trellis, ain't no telling how far out they'd run. So if you grow these, you definitely want to put them on some kind of trellis, and hopefully we'll get some good beans here before too long, kind of wrap up the bean growing season before it gets hot. We get a lot of questions from folks, and one of the most popular questions we get is, how do we keep weeds down in our garden plots? How do we keep them so relatively weed free? Now I've got 3 rows of squash and zucchini here. I need to thin them out to one plant every 2 feet. I'll probably do that in the next few days. And one thing we do for weed pressure, and we've talked about this on our previous videos, is drip irrigation. We're just watering right where those plants are. We're not watering these empty spaces here. But when we get some rain, there's nothing we can do about that. And that's when we'll start to see these weeds pop up. Look down here, we can see some crabgrass popping up there. Maybe a little purslane. There's 2 pigweeds trying to get started. And we believe in a process called frequent shallow cultivation. So you come in here when those weeds are tiny and small and just do a light cultivation on the soil, and that will keep those weeds from thriving or surviving anymore. And our choice tool for that is the old handy dandy wheel hoe here. I haven't got started yet, but I'm about to, and I can zip through this little 20 by 40 section in about 5 minutes. So it don't take long. And I like to alternate between a slicing tool like the oscillating hoe or our sweeps. And the next time I cultivate, I'll come in here with the cultivator teeth and just go back and forth with those 2 attachments. But you gotta get those weeds when they're small like that. Can't be letting them go big, get a big root structure and go to seed. Gotta get them when they're small, and you won't have any problems. And that's the way to keep that weed seed bank down, and it will do wonders for your weed pressure in the future. Well, that right there is the last squash harvest for this plot right here for several years actually. So I did a YouTube video earlier this week talking about how for some crop families, especially cucurbits, we don't want to leave them in here. We want to get them out of here. And you see I pulled them all up, stacked them up right there. I ain't got time tonight to, it's about to get dark, haul them to the burn pile, but we'll haul them to the burn pile tomorrow and burn these guys. Some of them plants were absolutely massive. You had to kind of get your muscles behind you to pull them up. But we got everything out of here, so we won't plant cucurbits in this plot here for another at least 2 years, maybe even 3, if we can make it that far in a rotation. Now we've still got drip tape down here where the rows are going to be, so the first step in turning over this plot is going to be to rip up that drip tape. We'll probably leave our mainline manifold here, just depending on what we're going to plant here. I don't know yet. But we'll rip that drip tape up, and there's not a whole lot of weed pressure in here. I mean, there's a few tall ones there that grew up, around where those squash plants were where I couldn't weed, but I can take my wheel hoe or my stirrup hoe little long handle hoe and get in here and knock these out pretty quick. You'd be surprised, I can clean this plot up here, shooting probably about 20-30 minutes ago, and have it ready to go, ready to plant something. So I don't know what we're going to plant here yet. Probably something like a cover crop, but you know, we've been using sunflowers as cover crops too, so we might plant a big plot of sunflowers here. We might plant a plot of iron clay peas here. So we're going to do something to give this soil a break, put a little cover on it, and I'm not going to plant what we call a cash crop here next. So we'll plant a cover crop or some flowers or something to kind of help our pollinators out. We'll get those squash out of the way. We've got more squash way over there coming along, and we'll take these inside, wash them up, and probably fry some of them up tomorrow. Look what I got in the mail today. Got our sweet potato plants here from Steel Plant Company, and we got several hundred of these Georgia Jet slips right here. They look pretty good. They didn't have to go far from Tennessee here to Georgia, so they look pretty good. Still fairly moist right there, but it's gonna be about, you know, probably in the morning before I get these guys planted. This afternoon now, and so I want to put these guys in a little bit of water to keep them hydrated so they don't poop out on me when I plant them in the ground. And this is a good idea if you're not going to plant them immediately. Kind of soak those roots in some water. So I got me a little bucket right here. Let me turn my water on. And we're just going to put a little bit of water down in the base of this dirty bucket here. And we're going to stack them sweet potatoes in there. And I would say, you know, even if there's just going to be maybe in a half a day difference between the time you're going to plant this thing and when you get them in the mail, that's a good idea to put them in water. So we're going to just stack them in here like this right here. I got a few more here. And hopefully I can stack them in here almost like flowers in a vase. That way they'll all be standing upright. I don't really need the leaves to be in the water. So I want all these plants to be in the water here, kind of like that right there. So we'll put all our plants in there, keep them nice and hydrated till we get ready to plant them puppies in the morning, and it'll be go time.